Joining us for this Fishbowl conversation tonight, Asian American Black Unity Happy Hour. If you're out there in the chat, let us know you're there. Let us know where you're coming from. Let us know what you're drinking too. Yeah. Oh, hello everybody. Welcome, as I said, to Bay Area Theater Cypher's Twitch channel. As you can see, I am weirdly alone today. Usually we've got my co-conspirators Dan Wolf and Carlos Aguirre here to help me out, but I'm flying solo, but not quite solo today. I want to go ahead and begin by turning down my second monitor over here, which is creating a horrifying feedback loop that is making me lose my mind. Give me 1 second. And there it goes. I just did it. Like I said before, if you're out there, let us know you're there in the chat. Throw some fun emojis and stuff like that. I am still figuring Twitch out, and we have literally been doing it for almost a year now. I don't even know what those things are called, coconuts or whatever. Like, put that shit in the chat. Make it happen. Good to see everybody. What is going on today? Well, a lot of things have kind of been on my mind recently. Talk a little bit more about that later, but what's happening today is a little bit different than what we've been doing on Bay Area Theater Cypher. If you've joined us for a Telltale Hearts performance or for a Cypher session before, there's a lot more rapping usually, and that's probably not going to happen so much tonight. It's going to be mostly a conversation. It's going to be pretty chill. People are welcome to kind of come and go as they please, but I do encourage everyone, please, to let us know your thoughts. You know, if something is coming up, if something's welling up in your soul and you feel you want to talk about it, put it in the chat. I'll be kind of monitoring the chat. I can speak, monitoring the chat and figuring out what we want to kind of talk about, how to kind of put certain questions and discussion points into the conversation. So please join in the talk. You are here as much as us, and you are all welcome to drink as well. Before we begin, I wanted to start with a land and labor acknowledgement. Just in the spirit of humility and respect, we request that you all join us in acknowledging that the land beneath us is native land. I'm coming at you from East Oakland, California, which is Huichin. That is the traditional unceded land of the Lishan Ohlone people, and it was taken by force by U.S., Spanish, and Mexican militias. And since we're all joining this discussion, like I said, from different places, just take a moment, if you would, to just acknowledge in the Twitch chat the unceded land from where you are calling in. To find out whose land you're occupying, you can go to nativeland.ca. We're going to throw that in the chat right now. And if you live in the Bay Area and you want to learn more about the work led by the indigenous women of the Soulati Land Trust and support Native communities who still live on this land, please go to soulatilandtrust.org. We will also throw that link in the chat. And, as we acknowledge the indigenous peoples who have and continue to live here, steward this land, and resist settler colonialism, we want to also acknowledge that this country has been built on the forced labor of African people through violent, systematic abduction from their homelands and enslavement over hundreds of years. We acknowledge the impacts this has on African descendants through this country's development. And I want to just acknowledge all of these truths, first and foremost, before we begin, so everyone who lives here can think about what it means to benefit from this legacy. Thank you. Do continue, like I said, the links for nativeland.ca if you're unsure of where it is that you're coming from. That has an incredible map that kind of maps out all over the country, and I believe it's expanding too. Wherever you're coming from, what native land you live on currently and occupy. Great. Well, let's get to our discussion in just a moment. I'm going to bring up our guests in just a second here. I guess I wanted to start a little bit with a moment I had, a very interesting moment I had where I was talking with my significant other, and we were talking about kind of how trauma manifests and things like that. And I have always been the kind of person to, and I'm working on this, not to tamp things down, but to kind of compartmentalize things. I got a lot of shit to do. I'm a busy person. Sometimes I just need to put something in the vault and put that vault somewhere where I still have access to it, but I can't deal with it right now. And I remember we had a moment where I leaned in to kiss her and we just knocked heads. And it hurt a little bit. It didn't hurt a lot, but I felt like pain, like an actual physical pain for the first time in like a really long time. I guess I've been really careful. I hadn't cut myself or fallen or, done anything goofy for a while. And so I felt that pain and I started laughing. And then I could not stop crying. And I was like shaking, and something I had realized was that I had not allowed myself to feel the effects of the violence that has been perpetrated against um, the elders in the Asian community. I have been trying to be active with the Oakland Chinatown Coalition, which is, I'll throw that in the chat later. They're an incredible group working out of Oakland Chinatown to make sure elders have people to walk home with and storefronts are protected. And with Asian Black Unity, which is another group that's doing really cool stuff. But I really hadn't allowed myself to not only like feel in my body the effects of that trauma, and also just sit down and like think about what it meant to me. And something that I saw a lot, especially in the media, was the way that the way the attacks were being portrayed, because a lot of the people who were attackers were young Black men. Like the pictures that are getting put up on media are like the exact moment that like a fist makes contact with a face, or like the exact moment where you can see the two different kinds of people who are a part of this incident. And throughout history, throughout time immemorial, that kind of sensationalism has been used as a instrument of division. And a lot of people know it. A lot of people know it and choose not to talk about it. A lot of people just do nothing about it. A lot of people choose to be blind, but I can't help but see that. Yeah, I'm really I've been giving myself these past few weeks to really just feel it all. And it's a little overwhelming. Yeah. So, in the spirit of that, in the spirit of making sure that I wasn't kind of sitting alone like we kind of all have been during this pandemic, alone in our little Obi-Wan Kenobi holes, like just cloistered, and trying to keep out the pain of the Clone Wars and stuff. I'm getting into nerd territory here, but like I wanted to start talking to people about it. I talked to some people kind of in my immediate kind of Asian American, specifically like theater artist and artist community. I started talking to Ashley Smiley of the Bayview Opera House and the Campo Santo fam. And through all these little conversations, basically I told everyone, like, I want to have like a thing where we can just sit down and talk about this shit, because like not a lot of people are talking about this shit. And through these conversations, we realize there's just so much, and there's so much nuance, and there's so much stuff from our history and from our upbringing that we're bringing to the table when we think about these things. And so many people are using kind of that surface level analysis of whatever it is that's going on right now to inform who they attack verbally and physically. And I just wanted to have a place where people can sit down, grab a drink, and literally say whatever the fuck is on your mind about this. And while we do it, hold each other in love and hold each other in the spirit of unity and hold space for kind of where we're all coming from, man. Because it's rough right now. It's hella rough. And this is the only way forward in my mind. The only way forward is to have spaces like this. The only way forward is to continue to have spaces like this where we learn from each other, where we talk to one another, where we point out blind spots either way, where we see where we're the same. And then after that, who the fuck knows? But at least it's beginning. And I want to begin that right now by inviting everyone. Tassi, if we could just bring up our Brady Bunch chat right now with everyone who's here. I want to do a quick introduction going all around. Thank you very much, everyone, by the way, in the chat for just letting me have that moment just now. I want to bring it to, oh my goodness. And Los is down in the corner there too. Amazing. I want to bring it and begin the whole thing with whatever everyone has, just a toast to start out this happy hour here. There we go. Cheers, everybody. So glad to have you. So glad to be here in the space with you, the virtual space in our little boxes. Cheers, kampai, l'chaim, young boy, all of the things. So in the Twitch chat right now, I'm going to go kind of not counterclockwise. I'm going to go clockwise. Starting with Michelle Mush Lee from Whole Story LLC. What up, Michelle? How you doing?
Hey, Phil, I'm doing well. Look, what you just said was super beautiful. So thank you off top. That was, you put into words what I had been feeling and avoiding all at the same time. So thank you. I'm so honored to be here. And what's up, Twitch?
Hey, what up? Show some love to Mush in the chat room. I'm going to go over to Soulati, Tommy Soulati Shepard of the 2-time Grammy-nominated Alphabet Rockers. Tommy Shepard, what it do, sir?
Well, you know how it do. It's a Saturday night, and we got some drinks, and we're going to have a conversation. And so very happy to do that, especially since we can't see each other. So, let's do what you said. Like, well, I'm not going to piggyback off of Mush too much, but what you said was amazing and set it off really right. There you go.
Cool. And there we go. There's Francesca McKenzie, Francesca Fernandez McKenzie, coming at us from, where are you right now? You listed so many places.
I know. The pandemic has made me nomadic, but I promise that it's COVID safe. I like wear my Asian visor everywhere, but I'm currently in San Diego in Kumeyaay territory.
Very, very good. Let's keep on going. We have an empty Brady Bunch space there for Miss RyanNicole, who's going to join us a little bit later. But as of right now, it's going to be a little Carlos Aguirre stand in. But let's go over to Lisa Marie Rollins. Oh, I think we got you on mute.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm so glad to be here with all of you. I am coming to you all from Ute, Cheyenne territory in Colorado, and drinking my water tonight. I might switch up in a minute. And just grateful to be part of the conversation, and I've been thinking a lot about the history of our communities that is already so strong, and that I don't want us to not go, not lift up at the same time as we're acknowledging like the heat of what is happening right now. So Phil, again, like, thanks for opening it up and just like cracking it open, like, so we could go high and really deep all at once. So I appreciate that. I'm so glad to be here.
Word. Thank you, Lisa Marie.
Mhm.
Krystle. What's up, Krystle?
Hello. Hi. Krystle Piamonte, she, her, on Ramai Olani land. Yeah, just piggybacking off of what everyone's saying, I'm really super honored to be here and amongst artists whose work I've witnessed over the years that I absolutely respect and admire, and whose work in their communities has been felt and has done so much. So thank you, Phil, for inviting me to this and for starting this, because yeah, it's a lot happening. So
Thank you. And we're gonna go over to Smiley. Smiley.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Smiley. I'm currently coming from Vallejo, which is Muwekma, Ohlone land, but I am from and kind of only will ever rep the 415 San Francisco, home of the Bugetto. And I that's that Rimatush Ohlone land. And yeah, I mean, I know it's kind of like an echo chamber, but thank you for like opening that up. And I do agree that this is the way that the change starts, is people having a space to come and just have an honest conversation and figure out what we can learn, what we can teach, what we can share, and then how we can build for the future. So I'm excited to have this conversation with y'all.
Dope. And in the center of it all, Tirumari Jothi. What up?
Hey Phil, what up, man?
You can say
me. I wanted to know how you were doing, but like it's cool. I can keep going. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been already a crazy 2 months, and 2021 is off to a great start. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about. I don't know if you heard, there's like a whole ass pandemic outside.
I'm just hearing about that. That's
Yeah.
crazy. This is our crew. Like I said, a little bit later, we might get some drop-ins. We'll have some special guest stars possibly a little bit later. So keep your eye out for them. But like I said before, as we continue with the conversation, people in the chat, feel free to share your thoughts. Feel free to share any questions you have or any topics that you want to bring to the table. Okay, I'd like to just start. Can we all just like take a big old breath in? That shit out. Another one. And out. One more. And out. Very good.
Like, bruh, can we just do that for like a half an hour?
I know. Can we just do that? Can we just fucking breathe for this whole thing? Don't stop breathing, everyone. I'd love to hear, I say this to my students all the time, I'd love to hear stray thoughts. Like, this is not necessarily a comment or a question or anything like that. Just like whatever it is that you're just coming up right now. Just a stray thought. Can be a half thought.
I'm just thinking about how this conversation just really brings to light the way that I'll just say it, like white supremacy and like division tactics work, especially within the media. Like, there is a huge push to make this a Black versus Asian thing, which is like a whole other thing, because we can talk about like what is Black and we can talk about what is Asian, right? And like who's the particular folks involved. But also these are like two marginalized communities, right? And we're in the middle of a pandemic. Economics is crazy. And when economics goes down the drain, people get robbed, right? So it's like, but instead it's made again for us to be against each other. And like, we're just so much better together. We have so much that we can learn and share. And like, from surface to deep, like we resonate with each other. We experience each other's communities all the time, especially like growing up in San Francisco. Like I went to elementary school in the Sunset. You know what I'm saying? Like my homies had me with the lychees and the little fried octopus, you know what I'm saying? Or you got the little,
Got the nasty ass white rabbit can.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, look, but edible rice paper. Look, you could eat the wrapper.
You could eat the wrapper, and that was the coolest shit about it. You eat the thing, it tastes like
That's it.
It's awful.
It's literally like LaCroix, you know what I'm saying? It's empty. It's empty. But I could eat the wrapper, you know what I'm saying? And like for me, you know, I'm Black. I'm like, y'all are some smart ass people. Like I could eat the wrapper. Like what is going on? Or even like rice patties, okay? Because like there's like places where you can get rice patties and they're like the bun, right? It's like for a sandwich. Come through. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? But like we're better together. And I just I think this more than anything just has been showing me that like at the root of it, it's just a ploy to try and make us dislike each other and talk crap about each other and not mess with each other. And this is the time right now for us to go, no, this is some stuff that's out here trying to make us fight. And what's better for this is if we come together and we have events and we have conversations, we talk it out, then that big bully over there don't stand a chance, you know, like when we got it together. And so as that was a stream, okay, you know, you said random thought, that was a whole little river.
Yeah,
chase it if you want to, but like that's what's been on my mind about this conversation, about this situation.
Let the river flow, man. Absolutely.
I mean, listen, we all spice our food. That's really, I think, something we can really connect on.
Just saying, like
just saying, you know.
I've weirdly been thinking about that whole like people don't season the food kind of thing, because I think about, because there are like certain like foods like Chinese culture that are specifically, they're not bland, but they're specifically like subtle in taste. And so I've thought a lot more about like, yeah, sometimes the food is seasoned and sometimes like it's purposefully not seasoned so you can appreciate it, you know? Yeah. And I don't know why, that was just a thought that like,
I mean, you know, as long as they're
but that's not what they do.
Yeah, exactly.
They've like what they do is they go searching for the seasoning, they call people a bunch of wrong names, they get lost along the way, kill some folks, and then still don't know how to use what they said they was looking for.
Right.
It's a whole, it's not on purpose. Okay, them. What was it? What did they have? The deconstructed peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that they did on purpose.
Oh no!
Okay, where you go pay hella money to go to a restaurant and you got to put together your own PB&J sandwich.
Yeah,
that's
what's,
but not seasoning.
What's there to deconstruct? Is it just like a bottle of Jiffy or something, or like?
Yeah, like you legitimately like walk up in there and they're like, pick your bread. Okay, put the peanut butter on the thing, put the jelly on the thing, put it together and give us $65 because you made your own sandwich and we let you do it in our restaurant.
That is hysterical to me that this whole thing started because people wanted spices. And like, and they get here, they establish they don't even use the shit. Like,
everything but the kitchen sink, you know. I'm like, it's like they went out, they got everything, did all the stuff, but they still don't even. Just because salt is not a seasoning.
That's fucking funny. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I know I was so Krystle when we were talking about like, because you're you're on Twitter, which is something that I kind of I don't really. It's a little. It's
Yeah.
like Pandora's box up in that shit. Like I can't not look away when I start scrolling, and it just gets worse, you know. But you have the fortitude, and you have been kind of on as M Twitter, just kind of hearing what people are saying. Do you mind like talking a little bit about kind of some of the stuff we were talking about the other day?
Yeah. I'm like, where do I start? Yeah, Twitter is it's an interesting place. And I guess some of the things I talked to you about, right, was like the call for bringing attention to what's happening in our community, and why is it kind of being brushed under the rug. And I think in some ways, you know, some people on Twitter are going about it wrong, right? Like they're trying to make comparisons to BLM, and I'm just like, that's just not how we need to do it, you guys. Like this is not, we can't pit against each other, right? And you know, or even just like some of the responses back at people asking for just some sort of acknowledgement that what our community is going through is just horrendous. Some people are responding saying, well, especially when it comes to Bay Area people, they're like, well, Bayesians, like, when are you going to stop appropriating? And I'm like, I don't know if that's the answer to what we're asking for. And that's a whole other conversation I think that needs to happen. So it's just been tough because both our communities are hurting and have been hurting for so long, and it's taken a long time, I think, to really have these conversations. And I just hate watching our communities constantly finding ways to kind of go at each other for things that yes, need to be talked about, but it's also like that, I don't, you know, God, sorry, it's a lot. I think
I'd love to follow that thread as far as like, Mush, were you about to say something?
No, I'm just letting Krystle know, like, yeah, it's hard to talk about, and I'm feeling you, and like keep saying it, because yeah, I got love. It's hard, sometimes it's hard to put the language around, and I'm a language person, you know what I mean? As a poet, I'm a writer. And to talk about this is like, I feel like in some ways we've been talking about this since the day we were all born. And then we're still having some recycled ass conversations. And then at the same time, there's this challenge, like we can't stop, we have to talk different. Like even our strategies for how to heal have to be different. Like it can no longer be like an Asian Black against each other narrative. Like that's not even like those binaries can't exist because that was fake to begin with.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like, I mean, there's so many things on my mind, and I mean, we have a brilliant group, but I just want to let Krystle know, like, yeah, some of us, like, our jobs are to put language and art and creation and analysis to this shit that's happening, and it's still hard to talk about. Yeah. So, I mean, like, if anybody's, sometimes that stops us from even having conversations like this, because it's like, shit, what if I walk in shit, man? What if I say the wrong thing? And then I'm going to be the racist, or I'm going to be the Asian girl that's not woke enough. And like, I feel like even the ways that we talk about this, when we fumble together with compassion. Yeah, because that cancel culture stuff, just that, I don't believe in none of that. Like, I don't believe in Disney movie, like, you know, reconciliation, but I definitely feel like all of us, part of this lesson is like, how do we create something new that we've never seen? That's the rule of it. None of us have ever seen or lived in a racially just world, period. None of us.
This is like imagination, realistic but radical imagination, right? And then with a lot of these conversations, and it was funny because I actually like just worked on The Great Con by Michael Gene Sullivan. And it was a dope piece. And then I realized there was one part where the Genghis Khan character was like, so I'm Asian, but do people in Asia call themselves Asian? And like the Black character is like, I don't know. And then he asked him some more like questions. He's like, I don't know. He's like, why don't you know what people call themselves? And I was like, growing up in the Bay, especially in the city, we both kind of just came to the understanding that it's a group. Like, y'all Asian, I'm Black. We gonna do Asian stuff. We gonna do Black stuff. And like, it wasn't as like particular. And then I realized that like a lot of my friends, I actually like, they were Chinese. And then I was like, I never actually really wondered like Cantonese, Mandarin, like what that looks like. Y'all like, that's just, but they also were like, that's just what I am, because a lot of my friends were in this world of kind of separating from traditionalisms and like kind of jumping in on like being an American. So like they were also just trying to be Asian, you know what I mean? But now when I'm having these conversations, I'm like, there's so many things that I think both of us, for so many reasons, are like ignorant about in each other's culture. And now is a great time for education, right? And now is a great time to have the conversations, but also figure out like how we got to those places. But like, yeah, man, like I love my Asian fam. Asian fam's dope. Like, but then I like sit there and I go, am I saying it's dope in the stereotypical way? Or is it like coming authentic, right? Because how much am I really studying? How much am I really? So like, that's been something too, where I'm like, I love me some good fight choreography, but am I like aiding and abetting, this kind of like everybody does kung fu or karate narrative, like.
But we do.
You didn't know, Smiley?
If you try to
defend that.
step up to me, you'll hear a big voice just go round one.
But it's like stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? I realized that I grew up in a really privileged situation where like we were cool with that being the case. Like we wasn't going ham. I knew that Black History Month meant Lunar New Year off, bet, lion dances, bet, and somebody's mama bringing fried chicken and red beans and rice, bet. Like that's what my Bay Area bubble gave me. And so now looking at these instances while I'm older, I'm just like, I'm understanding that there's deeper levels, but also like, how do I articulate this conversation? Because it's been lax, it's been chill. And I've had my own situations, but I've never had to put it into language to really dissect it. So I'm like, how do I do that? I'm like, ooh, am I like anti-Asian? What does that mean? No, I'm not. Like, what am I doing? Because this world is so
right.
No,
by definition, right? Yeah, I totally get that. I totally get that, and I also get caught up in knowing that there's been generations and generations before us that have just been like, this has just been like just in our fabric of generations of our families to be this way about each other. And even when and the newer the generation gets, the more like outlandish their like thoughts get, and they expand a little bit more. But we haven't expanded that much. Like with even the Black community to the Asian community, the Black community to the Latino community, like it's crazy. Like what this, like you were saying earlier, Smiley, this white supremacy has like really done a number on us, man. Because like we playing into it too, and like how hard is it, or how difficult is it going to be to go tell our elders that, not that they were wrong, but there's something different, or even that, like how do you repair? That's what I get caught up in. Yeah, how do you repair that?
I remember there was a rally in front of the Oakland Police Department, one of many, and I was there with some friends, and a old Cantonese woman came up to me and like asked me like what was going on, and I didn't really have the words to describe it to her in ways that were not like if you Cantonese, like Hakyan, which is like like dark person. Like, and you know that word, you know that phrase going on. And I didn't want to say that to her. I was like, it's a Hokkien thing, you know, that is going on right now. I wasn't about to tell, and I had to like kind of, you know, I did this thing. I kind of traumatized myself when I was a kid and like tried to unlearn my Cantonese just because I was like, this is dumb. I want to do that. I want to eat sandwiches and like, and like, and so I had to kind of like figure out a way. I was like, there are people here who want justice but they're not getting it. And also they want to live in houses. This is like how I probably sounded, like speaking the Cantonese, like I want to live in houses and people aren't letting them, and the police are mean. And like, and she was like, oh, and just like kept walking. So the language exists to kind of like figure that out. But something deep that made me realize is like there is no language, like at least colloquially, to like talk about that sort of thing. That's not a lot on a lot of people's radars, and something that I talked with a lot of kind of pre-conversations before we started this Fishbowl was like, I've noticed this in Asian American activism, is it tends to be very insular. Like Scarlett Johansson will do some dumb shit and we'll be like, oh, we gotta get on Scarlett Johansson. And it's like, yeah, obviously fuck Scarlett Johansson, but also like, is that really the only thing that we have to talk about? You know, the underrepresentation and stuff like that is all real. All that is real. All that, I feel that as an actor, as a artist, I feel all that stuff. But is that the only thing? Because every time I get in those circles, and maybe I'm in the wrong circles, but every time I get in those circles, I feel like that's the only thing we talk about. Our men are emasculated. Our women are exoticized. This is happening. We don't have enough roles and stuff like that. We need more crazy rich Asians. Like it's weird that we get stuck in that loop and we don't open it up to like, first of all, how is some of the protests that we're doing inspired by protests that have come before us? And also, how do we make sure that we're not just, yelling in our own echo chamber?
Yeah. Can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
Like, I feel like it's important to talk about your oppressions as much as your privileges. And I agree with you. Sometimes we'll be in these affinity Asian spaces and they want to harp on the things that are problematic, but then we get focused on the hurt and our trauma instead of like also the privileges we have when it comes to white supremacy as model minorities. The fact that like we learn from the I recognize like the Black diaspora is not a monolith, just as we are not a monolith. And what Dr. Smiley was saying about like, oh, what do Asians call themselves? It's like, the origin of Asian American was a political term in the 1980s in order to give us more power in this country. But outside of this country, you're Chinese or you're Korean. And then let's think about the privilege of the fact that like with the Asian American diaspora, a lot of us still have our ancestors, still have our language, still have our crops. Right. So there's a whole, that's why we can't appropriate Black Lives Matter. It's a very, very different situation. Many of our ancestors came here by choice. And not forced here, right? So there's that dynamic. I think that people are going to act the way they're always going to act with their inherent bias before, regardless, right? So like when I go into these clubhouse rooms with Asian American affinity groups, like a lot of times it's this feeling of vigilantism, right? When we think about like Daniel Day Kim and, they're like, we're going to give money to whoever finds this person. And I think what Dr. Smiley was saying about desperation, like we are in desperate times, right? So people are going to be operating in these different ways that are based in their inherent bias or based in their lack of understanding of how we're stronger together. And I'm glad we're having these conversations. It is important. And it also scares me because a part of me is like, well, we're all in agreement in here, but there's also like a lot of hurt, a lot of trauma, and how white supremacy does pit us against each other in order for the system to continue to work as it was set up to work. Right. So that's what I'm thinking of.
Absolutely.
Look, that's a lot. But that's truth right there. But it's weird because like, okay, I'll say, look, we're in a space where we may say things that we're not sure about. So I'll just say things and you let me know.
Word.
But like I went to Lowell and SF. It is like 97.5% Chinese. And then like scatterings of and like literally I mean like Chinese. And then there's like some Korean and like some Vietnamese, and then they're all mad because they're like, God damn, you know, because there are historical issues within the Asian community as well. But like, so I'm like in our Lowell alumni page, and I'm like, whoa, why are you so like anti-Black, crazy, like just coming out your mouth all wild? But then I'm seeing like other like Asian homies be like, you got it all wrong. What's wrong with you? You need to watch yourself. And I'm like, okay, one, as a Black person, it's really nice to not have to defend myself all the time. Like I love seeing that. But also, I don't think a lot of people know that that conversation is happening within the Asian community until they have conversations like this, where they realize that the idea too that all Asian people don't like Black people because this is happening is also incorrect, and that there are conversations happening between generations, between different groups, about how this dialogue is wrong, right? And I'm like, so we just need to stop pretending, like we just need to keep talking and stop pretending and stop holding these conversations in our living room, basically in our little internet living room, and have them in places like this where people can see that there's a whole array of ways that people are reacting, but there are folks who just understand right versus wrong. Because ultimately we're dealing with this like right versus wrong thing. And if you do, you know what I'm saying, say less for, you know, it's like, it's not even rocket science. There is a whole system out here thriving off of us not being cool, right? And we can take that from whatever aspect we want to. Black side, like we lose when they win. But if we have these conversations and we go, look, these are the things that we made like bump heads about. These are the things we could share. These are the things, you know, and we have that relationship conversation, right? Out of love. Like we are setting the foundational relationship. Like we're about to get married. Okay. These are the vows we're agreeing upon. Like when we have that conversation, the more we can do that, I feel like so much can be accomplished. But right now, it's just like desperate hurt, fear, desperate hurt, fear, clash. Like, because we can't even see that that conversation can happen and needs to happen. It's just like, I'm fighting and I've been fighting and I've been fighting, I've been fighting, I've been fighting, I've been fighting, I've been fighting. And so all we know how to do is fight each other. And it's like, no, we need to like, you know, Tybo it out, y'all. We need to push it.
Everyone's
out.
going to be more like Billy Blanks and the Wu-Tang Clan.
You know what I'm saying? Come on.
I mean, I've complained about this before to you, Phil, but and I think Tossi's heard me say this too. But like, here's the thing: is that I have never understood Indian Republicans. I've just never understood the concept. I've never understood the premise. Because it's
Asian Republicans confound me less, but it's still very weird to see.
Right, and it's like if you talk to Hindu Republicans, their whole platform is that we don't like Muslims and neither do Republicans. But it's like, well, they can't fucking tell the difference. They don't know that you're not Muslim. Do you know how many people think I'm Muslim? Like all the time, and I don't. All I have is a beard. Like it's enough. It really is like we have to be aware of sort of the perception and the way that we're received in this country for sure. Yeah. Anyway, my name confuses them even more because I mean, good thing I'm not like, I don't know, like Mohammed bin Laden. The worst thing ever. At least I'm like a name that no one can pronounce, and then they're just like slightly suspicious of me. You know?
That guy, Mohammed bin Laden's got it rough.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Oh, but he exists. You know what I'm saying? Like the thing is that he really exists, and he's probably so sweet. He's like, that's not even. I don't even know them.
That's like if a guy named Steve Smith committed an act of terrorism, and then every goddamn Steve was like profiled at the airport.
Well, but I think that's like also. I mean, if we're gonna talk about like names and stuff too, I used to feel so. I never had this problem because there's no Smileys really out here, and definitely not the Black ones. They're all in Chicago. But like while I was at Lowell, right, the graduations used to be ridiculous because you would have like Lee, but it's a whole bunch of different families. And you're like, y'all not even cousins? Because like for Black folks, it's like two of y'all at least got to be cousins. Someone got to be related. But even talking to my friends, being like, I don't even know that, like, I don't even like them. I don't, and I'm like, okay. It's so weird that it happens in that space, but like you don't often get to see that with Black folks or whatever. So like even just understanding the way that names worked, or even the way that they were given when Asian immigrants came in, when Chinese immigrants came in.
Angel Island.
Like, yeah, like it's so interesting to see. I don't know, something about just the names and the way that people will assume things off the name can like start things running.
Sorry to interrupt you, Doctor. I'm just saying though, I used to do it. I mean, like probably all of us did a lot of like teaching artist stuff in schools and things, and especially in San Francisco, where you talking about you was at Smiley out in that area. It was like a lot of the Asian kids had just like names that they were just like my name is Sue or Mary or like some very simple name. And I remember like we as alphabet rockers were like, nah, what's your real name? Like what's your name? And you don't have to hide it. And like, so it's all good. We're gonna just say your name. Your name is important. You know what I mean? And it actually made it like we crusaded about that and still do, like how important names are. And we celebrated their names instead of being like, no, they're not saying that cheesy, the Mayo version. They're saying their name. What's your name? You know what I mean? And like, that was a big thing for us. We just noticed that it was happening all over the place and just the assimilation. And then it just opened my mind to who.
Because these people out here
assimilating,
Yeah, it's like they like to rename people. You know what I'm saying? Like that is actually something that Black folks and Asians really need to like understand, is like we do share that experience too. We got put on a boat, and then of course, Kunta Kinte Toby, you know what I'm saying? But then also Asian folks came through Angel Island, and they got Betty. It's like, who's Betty? Where did Betty come from? Who
is Betty?
What is that? Betty? Like,
I'm saying,
or Peggy. Peggy used to happen like a bunch.
Colonization process.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what I always think about, is like it's the exact same colonizing process of taking our names, taking our bodies, and doing with them what you will, in the most horrendous of ways for all of us. And so I just don't, I always think about, I'm hella nerdy right now, but there's this amazing article about racial triangulation, and just I'm sure you've all read it, but it's a piece that talks about how Black and Asian folks, it's set up in like governmental structure of, actually positioning Asian folks above Black folks in like the economic stratum. And so like, here is how this shit works. And then at some point, Asian folks were like, wait, this is fucked up too, and so, but that article is amazing. So I encourage people to do it. But we've all been, I think about there's this other book that I saw that's all about Filipino bodies that have been colonized, and the pictures look exactly the same way that pictures of Black African bodies looked during, late 1800s, early 1900s, and they're all like these caricatures that are completely blown out of proportion or in some crazy imaginary horror. And so for me, when I saw those pictures, and I'd been studying slavery for a really long time, and working in a diasporic program that like makes you think wider than just your own shit, and so when I saw those pictures, I was just like, this is just the exact same shit. And so I think that it goes so deep as to even thinking about how we're reclaiming how we've been imagined in their minds and recreating that shit and putting it out there. When I'm thinking about the art, all of us probably artists in whatever way. And so that kind of creation is the kind of creation that I feel like that we have to figure out how to shed, but then create and remake our bodies in the way that we need to. It just tripped me out. I think about that colonization process all the time.
I mean, that's right. It's like the white elephant in the room is white supremacy. All of us are saying that. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, if you don't know that, and none of us knew that because all of us were conditioned to not know that. Which is why,
yes,
you know what I mean? Like when I was an undergrad, I did a narrative study of my high school history textbook. So I went back, my teacher was still there, let me borrow the textbook that I was in. US history, 900 pages. And I tell this story all the time because it still surprises people. 900 pages, 9 pages were dedicated to African-American history, 9. 3.5 to Asian Pacific Islander history, right? Like in Oakland alone, there are 45 unique API groups. So let me just break it down. We were smashed in 3.5 pages, family.
Yeah.
But the thing that was even crazier is that of those 3.5 pages, and the same was true for the story of African Americans, was that everything was in the context of war.
Absolutely.
Which is exactly the same tired story right now. So like, look, no matter what space I go into, I always have to acknowledge the fact that I am on indigenous land because that shit never gets taught. And I was politicized, I was actually politicized by a bunch of Koreans in North Oakland when I was 14 at the Korean Cultural Center. They politicized me, but it also, let me just go ahead and name that it was Black folks in the Bay who taught me my game as an artist, hands down. And I'm looking at 2 of them right now. I'm looking at Tommy. I'm looking at Smiley. I'm thinking about Candace. I'm thinking about Hadari. I'm thinking about Mark Bamuti Joseph. I'm thinking about Shanaka Hodge. These are all the family people that taught me to recognize the tradition of art in which I have been asked to take and carry and steward. Because I'm a spoken word poet, we comes from West Senegal, the tradition of the griot, right? And so I have to know that history. And that's how I got my game. And what I love is like, Smiley, like you really know your Asian people. Like you really know about that rice paper life. Like, I'm like, let's go ahead and big each other up. Like, yes. I mean, like, it feels good. It feels good, Smiley, that you're like, dude, Asian people aren't a monolith. Because usually I'm the one that's having to say that. So to see you, a fellow sister, to say that is like, wow, somebody sees me. Because you guys have to remember, in America, at 360 million people, Asian people, API, we're like what, 3.5 million? You dig? They're not a lot of us. That's actually so it look, okay, last thing. It does have to start at home. The only reason why I can get up on a camera screen right now and talk truth is because I sat in front of a living room with my grandparents, with my father, busting my spoken word poem that was like, fuck white supremacy. And they were like, what? You know what I mean? Your grandfather was beaten by a black man in Japantown when like you were 3. And me having to have that conversation with my father, like, we don't do that. That's not what we do, because this is exactly the system that's designed. You have to have a proximity. You have to have one sacrifice in order to convince the people that this thing called white supremacy doesn't exist. And we happen to be that pawn. That's the role that we were given. So name that shit, because name it. That's all.
Yeah, it's so, thank you for that. First off, it's so built in, and like so it's such a default state. Like I've had multiple moments arguing with white people on the side of people of color about institutionalized racism, things like that, to have the white person turn to me and be like, well, I think you understand what I'm saying. And that's like, okay, just because I sound like Indian Urkel doesn't mean that I am
I don't
trying
get it.
to
Oh no, don't put that on me. Don't put that on me.
I'm just saying, like, I'm very non-threatening from what I've been told by white people. And so I think they just like are assuming that I'm on their side. But that is how it plays out. And like there is an exploitability to the Asian population here. There are differences that allow us to be separated. And then, like you all said, like it's just a matter of knowing about it, because this is a real conversation in the Ivy League circuit right now, where white supremacist groups are using Asian American parents who just want their kids to get into a good college as a front to push out diversity measures. Because like the immigrant mentality is to bust your ass until you make it and to be there for your family. And that kind of authority structure is exploitable. Like I mean, they can convict an Asian cop because an Asian cop is like ready to be a part of the police force, but also isn't as beloved to his squad. It's using like a scapegoat or a body shield in between these real issues. And it's infuriating. I mean, I used to joke that if I was any more light-skinned or anything like that, I probably would not have noticed racism as early as I did, because like it's just incessant. Like the most racism I've ever experienced is either when people think that I am black or people think that I'm Middle Eastern, and then you just have this moment. I mean, or at least I had this moment when I was a teenager where I realized that if this is what would kind of happen occasionally to me, if you were that all the time, then that's your everyday. And that's a conversation that it can be really difficult to bring to our communities, but it's necessary for sure.
And like colorism is so like what?
Oof.
That's some white supremacist crap too, fam. Like, look, everybody gonna get hit by the sun different. Okay, have you seen yourself during this pandemic? Okay, you have a winter color now. You didn't even know you could have a winter color, but you have a winter color because you ain't seen no sun because you've been in the house. Like within each of our community, right? Black folks have it, light skin versus dark skin versus people in the middle. But then also like that's one reason why I was glad to be like at Lowell or at freaking Lafayette Elementary at 45th and Anza, like out in the boonies. But that was also because I was like, oh, y'all do that too? People be lightening their skin out here too? Wait a minute, it happens in the Indian community too? Wait a minute. So do y'all know that they're ruining all of us? Like they're ruining all of us. Wait, y'all don't like y'all dark-skinned people either, right? And like also realizing that, the way it was explained to me, again, I'm not an expert, but like folks that were villagers in China were like darker skinned, and that's how, and then folks who kind of were like upper class or middle class or whatever, just not out, we're lighter skinned, right? And then that like was associated with class, and that was associated with access and privileges or whatever. I'm like, so how y'all understand all that, and then you don't see that that's what they're having you do over here? like that what you saw in your home when you came here, that's what they did with us, right? So you are already taught to dislike darker skinned people. You get over here with some Black people, it's also already taught that we're an undesirable community. So boom, on both sides, you've already been taught that we're the enemy.
Yep.
But
And
like,
then they have to survive. And then they have to survive. And so,
you know what
like,
I'm saying?
Yeah.
so
And help their families survive.
And that's
Right?
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. We come
And
here and yeah.
Yeah, it's all part of the design. And it's like, yeah, I just think about like when when you're constantly on this hustle, on this struggle, trying to get your own folks forward, it is very hard to look at the similarities and the like synchronicity with other cultures, right? And so like because we're both fighting white supremacy and all that white supremacy brings to the table, we never actually get to have the conversation where we go, hey, yo, I think white supremacy is playing both of us, right? Like, we're both on the set of Maury for no reason, though. Like, we're struggling, but our struggles are really not different. This system is making us fight each other over the same dollar, right? And only allowing us access to certain ways to make that dollar. So then now that's what we look like, right? Like, you look like you be rolling through Chinatown, Tokyo drifting. I look like I'm in a Dodge Charger rolling through Hunters Point. Like, those are the two ideals. And like, the more I'm just like, how do we get people to understand that you see? But then that's when it's like, I would say flywheel. But then that's a problem, right? If I'm already like, no, not Uber, but flywheel.
Tirumari just put in there in our personal chat that if that he'd be driving Uber.
I can say that because I did.
Hunter's Point, someone else is Tokyo drifting. He's
and I'm just like, hi, for John? Yeah.
But it's like,
and they're like, what's your name, bro? Actually, I'm not gonna say it. And I'm like, cool, where are you going to? I've actually driven for Uber and Lyft.
Oh, but it's like one of those things too, where it's like all of the things that I'm coming with in my world, it's fine to talk like that with my friends, right? Other people would hear that and they would go like, stereotype, janky, like, don't ever talk to her again. So then it's like, so how do we have that? Like, we need to have stripped down conversations, because I know my people, you know your people, everybody ain't perfect. We got stuff. Okay. And we have stereotypical stuff, right? Like, because it's also, stereotypes are based off of our real culture, right? That's always the fight. Like,
I'm a terrible driver, Smiley. Like, that's just plain and simple.
That's the worst when you're Asian and terrible driver. Like,
I get so paranoid about that. So you're right. Yes, there are some truths. I'm gonna own that. And I got yes. I'm sorry.
But it's like, but it's real.
Hey, and you know what, Mush? You know what? I get angry sometimes too.
I know.
I have been an angry Black man before.
Oh no, like on the freeway, people be rolling up and I'm like, they're about to see a fucking small ass Asian girl. And it is. And I meet whatever they thought. It's like, yes, it is me. I'm sorry. But
like, it's real. Like, that's the world we live in, is where when we start talking about what we know of each other's culture, it becomes very touchy, because we don't want to say that we just know stereotypes, but like but there's things that are part of our culture, you know what I'm saying? And like, but we also recognize that. I think that's also, okay, this is a random, you're welcome. But like, it's also brings me to the conversation of like, I guess we could say like appropriation, or even just like usage of the N-word. Like, that used to be like really interesting to me, because I'm like, you know what this word is based in, what it's used for, and you use it, and you've used it towards me with that intention, right? Calling me that, but you're not white, right? And so that makes it even kind of worse, because then it's like, why are you trying to be like that, like them? But then at the same time, I'll see, Chinese folks or like different like API groups use it amongst each other, and I'm like, in a way, that is whack. But there's a certain part of like, I want to belong somewhere, I want to be a part of something, and the closest marginalized group I can get to that makes me feel a certain way is Black people, and that word is as outsider as I am. So then I'm like, okay, I don't want to give you a pass, but I also need you to understand that that's the conversation you're having with yourself. Like when you're using that word, I'm understanding that you're trying to find a sense of belonging, but and that would be one thing, but I also know that you know how to use it to hurt me. And then I go like, so what are we doing? You either gonna be with me and we gonna ride like that, or you're not, and we're gonna ride like that. And I think that that's like, I know for sure at Lowell or like at Burton or Thurgood, when Black folks and Chinese folks or Black folks and Asian folks had a fight, it was because like Chinese dude called Black dude the N-word. Black dude was like, no, you don't. And then they had fisticuffs about it, but it wasn't even really about that. It was just like, fighting for the same crumbs. And so like that too is like a thing. And I understand it. It's a thing, but I'm like, so how do we talk about that too? I welcome you with open arms. Let me sing karaoke at the spot, fam. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, I will try all the things. Hit me with the sponge cake, okay? Hit me with that. Like I open it up, I hold it, okay? I hold it all with the arms. Asian aunties are literally the best. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the best. And I mean, like, across the board. Your Filipino auntie, your Chinese auntie, you get, like, your Korean auntie, like, all of them, the best.
You are lying, because the Asian aunties don't hug. We do not touch nobody.
I know, that's true. You don't.
Filipino aunties.
Filipino aunties pull you in. You know what I'm saying? You'll get like almost nose to nose with some, but you know what I'm saying? But like, it won't be like a hug, but you'll be like close enough to feel each other, right? But I feel like that's all love. And we just like, so how do we get to a place where we can really, again, sit in the living room and talk to each other on that level? Like, it's all love, auntie. I understand that someone that looks like me might have harmed you. Someone that looks like you might have harmed me, right? And that was foul. That was foul and janky, and they shouldn't have done that. But that's not me, right? Because you're my auntie, and they weren't you, right? You're my auntie. So like, how do we continue to build that bond and move forward in that way with like love and understanding? And like, again, my people be messing up, your people be messing up, we be having to smack each other upside the back of the head. You know what I'm saying? I'll be like, I really hope they weren't Black. Damn. You know what I mean? It's real. So, but like, this kind of conversation is what we need. This is how we have to have it.
I think so much of like Asian culture, and I'm kind of generalizing here. I'm definitely generalizing a little bit, but like, at least from how I know it, a lot of Asian culture, especially here in America, is kind of a culture of assimilation in order to like gain a certain amount of prosperity. Right? Like you have to go with the flow. We got here during the gold rush and people were like, you can't mine for gold. And it's like, well, that's what we can't, there was a mountain here made of gold. We wanted to come here and get the gold. And they were like, no, you can't do that, but you can wash our clothes and cook our food. And we were like, okay. And since
they were like, speak English.
Yeah. And since, they yell at us, we're like, have a good day, sir. That culture of assimilation leaves no place for a fighting culture, which is why I think so many like Asian people attach themselves to like hip hop and stuff like that, because there's no kind of like fighting infrastructure really there. It's just It's just go with the flow, do what you have to do to get the money back to your family, do what you have to do to get yourself up the ladder, do what you have to do. Doesn't matter who you step on as you work your way up, but do it, you know? And it's not until recently that kind of our generation, and maybe a little bit before our generation, is realizing that like, oh, that's not sustainable. Like that, it doesn't work that way. We have to learn from the cultures that know how to fight in order to fight back. And I think that's where you're coming from with these, you know, Asian people using the M word and stuff like that, that sense of belonging, that need to like be a part of a culture that knows how to like fight back, you know, at least a little bit.
So can I say
Yeah,
something?
you know, man, for some people too, for some Black folks, and I can say like in my earlier days, I was privy to the thought that like, you know what, that white dude can't say it, but you probably could say it. Like, you know what I mean? Like you cool. You know what I mean? Like I was like giving passes as in my teenage years. You know what I mean? Like, nah,
I love that
it was
shit.
it's a term of endearment, and like so it's cool. And I have I don't know, I guess I'm lucky. It hasn't been used in a negative way to me from the Asian community ever in my life. But I know I've seen it happen and all this. But so like when I was younger, I thought about that. But I moved to Louisiana, and then the word was just used whenever, however, whoever, you know what I mean? And then I moved back to Sacramento when I was like in my junior in high school. And so it was like, oh, well, you know what? I had to train myself not to even use the word. So y'all can't even say it either now. So if you could do me that solid, then that's cool. But I still understand what Smiley was saying earlier about like, there's an understanding of like why like you're using it. And I used to be cool with it. I used to. Yeah.
Much, I got you.
I was having a drink at the bar, and a Japanese man came up to me and said, I could tell that you're part Asian. What are you mixed with? And I was like, Filipino. And he said, you know that Filipinos are the niggers of Asia? And I said, are you saying...
but I've heard that a bunch.
I've heard that a lot.
Are you saying that I am a nigger? To my face?
Oh
like,
my
is
God.
that what you're saying? And he walked away.
He probably texted his dating coach later. Like, it didn't work.
It's I mean, have y'all ever like checked out Wikipedia though? Like, if you look at like racial slurs on Wikipedia, which I randomly have, don't ask why, but like I have, literally what they'll give you is like a little something specific here and there, but all the different types of like niggers you can be. Like, you're a sand nigger, or you're like a regular nigger, or you're like a water nigger, or and it's like, first of all, the word isn't even that cute. It's not that great. It don't even roll off the tongue right for you to be making like little spicy add-ons to it. It's not even that great of a word. It comes out weird. Like, why would you even do that? But also like understanding that's how it's thrown too. Like, we as a people, Black Americans, are introduced first as that, right? And then where do you want to be in association with that, right? And if you even kind of look like us, then you're also that, right? Like this weird one drop rule, but it's not even one drop. It's just like the one sun drop rule. Like, because you got hit by the sun in your area, and then everything builds on top of that, and it becomes, and it's like you are one, but I don't want to say that, but like you are. If we like name it that, then you know, yeah. And then like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Again, that's just like a resurfacing of like colonization and, you know, white supremacy and the way that people put shit on people. So I don't know, but yeah, the world is crazy.
I want to really quickly just give a shout out, first of all, to everyone who's joining us tonight on the Twitch stream. Hello, everybody. Hello out there in twitch.tv. Thank you so much for joining us and adding to the conversation. I see so many familiar handles and faces out there. Not faces, but like names, like usernames and stuff like that. A couple of people have to leave the conversation right now. Tirumari's got to go. Francesca's got to go. Thank you, both of you, for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure. I hope this is the first of more of these things, so that we can just continue to have this conversation, because it's so vital. But we're gonna
Very nice talking with y'all.
But thank you, Francesca, Tirumari. You're good. Tassi, if we got that 6 format up, let's in. Okay, word. Thank you. Also, big shout out to Tassi Alabastro, aka Cream Bananas, the Wizard of Oz, who's making this shit all happen. He's the man behind the curtain, making it all happen. Has been pulling the strings ever since we started moving to this digital format. He's supported us since the beginning when we did our very first Cypher video, and he's just so good. So give some love to Cream Bananas. Give him a follow. Hang out with him. He's got such an entertaining stream. He's playing some really fun games, and you might see me on Super Smash Brothers sometimes if he's playing. Yeah. Get my fucking ass handed to me by professionals, but it's gonna be dope. So Tirumari, Francesca, thank you. We're gonna keep on going with the talk here. Let's see, there we go. So
for me and my brother's cat, all cats are beautiful. Hey Cab, all cats are beautiful. All right,
all cats are
everybody.
All cats are beautiful.
Thank you for inviting me, y'all. It's a beautiful room.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Cool. So we're coming back in just a second. While we're kind of reconfiguring this, I want to let everyone know that our Cypher session on Thursday is going to be a album release party for MC Infinite's very first studio album. It's been a long time coming. He is one of the hardest working people I know, and he has been creating dope music forever. I don't know. It took him I listened to it the other day, and he has really put his heart and soul into an extremely well produced and just incredible album. And I can't wait for everyone to hear it. So Thursday, 7 p.m. Cypher sessions. Tune in. We're gonna have that. So as we're kind of moving stuff around here and making sure that we have our format, I'm going to go into the chat and see who's here. We have got Mina Morita is here from Crowded Fire. We got Senor Ichiban, aka Matt Morishige. Yes. Very good. Rejoice Ting, thank you so much for joining us. DJ Dirty Rice, thank you for joining us as well. Love all this. Gabe the Lurk, thank you so much for joining us. Anyone who has any questions that they want to kind of add to the chat, anyone who has any feelings about the conversation that has been had so far, anyone who wants to just kind of contribute to the conversation in any way, please feel free to do so in the chat right now. We're going to keep going till for just a little bit longer. We'll probably sign off around 9 p.m. But yeah. I wanted to keep on keeping on here. We've got the 6 Brady Brunch view right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Very good indeed. Hello everyone, welcome back. Yeah. Yes.
Alice. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Alice and the Brady Bunch.
Oh, word. How's it going? I've been thinking a lot about some, Mush, you were talking about talking to your elders kind of about this and, doing your living room performance and stuff like that. And for the people out there, maybe kind of like myself, who just don't know where to begin that conversation, what's good? Where do we start? Especially, some of us who kind of, I mildly despise the term tiger mom, but it's like kind of real sometimes. And like for those of us who have that, have this very fixed mindset, I remember, I don't know, wow, this memory just came up. I remember my grandma telling me, like, I have a little bit of villager in me. I'm a little bit Chujao. So like if I get some sun and I'm careful, I turn into like kind of a coconut almost. And every time that happened, my grandma would say I'm hak mang mang, which means dirty and black. And I was just like, and I never thought about that until kind of like recently. And like that's how deep it is. It's in the ways that we converse with each other just in general. We can just say that. We can say, hey, you're hak mang mang. Like, and we'll be like, cool, let's go have lunch. Like it's so deep. Like, how do we begin those living room conversations? Like we were talking about, how do we get our family in a room somehow and just start being like, yo, like, this is something that you taught me and I know is not a thing anymore. And this goes both ways. How do we talk to people who have lived these traumas for so long and it's so deeply ingrained that it seems like it's impossible to kind of not pry it out, but like kind of gently move us in a different direction? I honestly don't know.
It's weird because like you automatically want to be like, take it to the individual. Like you got to do the learning yourself before you have the conversation with others. But
you do though.
You do. And I feel like those conversations, because they can be so tough, right? And like our communities definitely have these hierarchies of respect, right? And like, especially when it comes to like parents and elders, there's just everything that you don't do when you talk to them. And so I feel like we like have to create some kind of like support system for people to like test it out, right? Test out conversation, but also have someone that they can lean on when trying to have that conversation. It's weird because it's kind of like setting up an intervention, but I feel like it's hard when you're in the room with like your family and like you're an individual trying to like combat all this stuff. But if you're in like a group setting, there's support or whatever, I feel like also opening just that conversation of like, so let's talk about what we know about this community. Like, what do we know about Black people? Like, no, grab the big, large Post-it and the marker, right? Make your little 2 lines. What do we know about Black people? And then what do we underline know about Black people, right? Or I do that. Like, what do I know when I say Asian? Like, who am I actually talking about? Because there are people that I interact with in particular, right? I don't meet a lot of Hmong people, for instance. I'm usually talking about Chinese, sometimes Japanese. And then like even the way that we break it down, like we could tell who's Korean, who's Cambodian, because they Black, they ghetto. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a different mindset, but it's like, who do we know and how do we know? And start working at it from home from there. And then that's as far as I've got with that. But I think that's where it starts to happen, maybe.
No, I like that, Smile. I think that's right. I think, and I'm going to bring it back to childhood because I'm a mother and it's not going to apply to everybody. But or maybe it's like a relationship, like with a lover or a partner. I said the word lover, gross. Sorry, guys. Or like, so when I had my son, it's like, he's 8 now. And look, I'll just say without even sharing how I had my son, there are many different ways to have your child, right? Or a child, many, many different ways. I really resent it when anybody tries to tell you how you should do it. You need to breastfeed for this long. You need to not formula feed. You need to do it natural. I don't give a fuck. You need to do it the way that your body says, because we have more tools now. That's just the way, the world we live in. My father was born, literally, this is not a sob story, this is just facts. My father was born on a dirt floor back in Korea. Like, he didn't even feel sorry for himself. He's just like, what are you talking about? That's just what it was. We didn't have midwives, really. Everybody was having birth at home. So everybody was a midwife. So part of me, it's a long way of saying, I don't think there's a perfect way. I was actually in an affinity group with a bunch of grad students last week at Cal, and a Pacific Islander Filipino brother whose dad is works in the mailroom, and mother is a receptionist, working class family. He's like, I'm afraid to talk to my family because I feel like I'll be disowned. Even like they will kick. So I'm like, don't do it that way then. Like, so that's just, I think that's just an invitation to observe your people, right. Like whatever your people is, like how do they, or how are they receptive to you? And I was, you know what I mean? And I had to do it my way. And I would never say this is the way you have to do it. At least me, that's just, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like, there's no, because now we have tools that our parents didn't have 20 years ago, that Yuri Kochiyama didn't have 25, 30 years ago. So it's like, it's always dynamic. Our strategies have to change. But I think if you're coming from the heart and it's people that are close to your core, like this is your support, you don't want to jeopardize that. I wouldn't, because especially at a time like this, when we're in the middle of a pandemic, you need every support you can keep, because we're losing people, literally losing people. So through multiple pandemics, racial pandemic, right? Biological pandemic, global pandemic, economic pandemic, spiritual pandemic. You want me to keep going? Financial pandemic. I'm just joking. So that's just my way of saying, I think, part of it is to know your people really well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Okay, but like, how do you find your people? Not even gonna lie, like, because I mean, like, okay, like even speaking from my own experience, when I was growing up, like I sound how I sound, and I actually sounded more like from Boston than I sound how now. Like now I sound like a 40-year-old like redheaded white woman, but before I used to sound like even more proper, right? And I was a nerd and I like to read, and those were things that if it wasn't ascribed to whiteness, it was ascribed to being Asian, right? Except, okay, stereotype alert, I did not have the math. Still to this day. But the rest of the stuff was cool. I wasn't actually around my own people like that. Like I'd visit my cousins or whatever in Sunnyvale, but I wasn't actually around my folks until middle school. And it actually freaked me out to be around that many Black people, because I was used to being around Asian people and like living that. And then when I got back to Lowell, I was like, well, this is different now that I've been around my people. Now I'm around the people I'm used to being around, but now it's different, right? We're having different conversations and I'm in a different space with who I am. And so, and then growing up, it would still be like, how I interact with different people. It was always a mix. So it's like when it's like trying to find my people, right, that I'm safe having this conversation with. It's weird because a lot of times I can think of Asian folks before I can think of Black folks that I can talk to or that I can rely on for this conversation. And so then it's like, so how do I guess this is a part of the conversation too, like breaching. What is happening behind you, Tommy? Breaching the conversation with my own.
Oh, bro, they can see you, bro.
Breaching the conversation with my own people. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's tender. Folks is tender. Like, I know I could talk to my mom. That's easy, but like, outside, because we have that larger community, like finding your people like just starts to mean something different. I don't know, that was just like my thing. I was like, I love how we found this right? Because I probably wouldn't have been able to find this group on my own thinking about it. But then it makes a lot of sense. So it's like, I don't know, we needed a fill to find our people. So it's like, who, so that's why I'm like, how do you find your people, who are ready to do that work, I guess.
Heard that.
Ding.
Do I see Ryan?
Joining us in just a moment, everybody, will be RyanNicole straight from concert over at Lake Merritt. Thank you very much for coming to join us for this convo. She'll be hearing this. I asked her, she had something to sip on, and she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get something." So that's probably what she's doing right now.
All right. Well, can I take it somewhere else then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was just thinking about how much when I was growing up, like a part of my life, kung fu theater was, and how much I wanted to be a ninja.
Like Beijing
How many tabby boots I bought. What up, Ryan?
Hey, just for everyone who's watching on Twitch, RyanNicole, the Queen, has just joined us.
What's up, y'all?
Hello.
Hey, love.
You.
Great to see
Conversation's been crackling. It's been really, really good. Glad to have your face, glad to have your voice in the circle.
Well, glad to be here with y'all, man.
Yeah, well, Tommy, it's interesting you say that because I grew up on there was this a camp of like entertainers who went through the Beijing Opera School in Hong Kong, which created people like Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung and those people. And those are the people I looked up to when I was like watching. So I was like, oh, I want to be able to move like that, both like in body and also just through society and stuff like that, and also be able to tell a story like that. So it's interesting that you say that. And for the longest time, I was so conflicted about, like, I talked about Wu-Tang earlier, and I was so fucking conflicted about that shit. And then I saw an interview with Riz. He knows his shit. Like,
he knows his shit though.
He knows what the fuck is up. Like, he was talking about like Pai Mei and the 7-step, like, death technique and stuff. And I was like, you're not supposed to know about that. I was like, you are literally not supposed to know about that. And he was just spitting all this knowledge about like all the kung fu movies I loved when I was a kid and stuff like that, and also the nature of Taoism and Qi and stuff. And so there is that that exists there. I talk to people about
that connection to hip hop, right?
Yeah, exactly. Speaking as an Asian American guy who runs a hip hop theater with a white Jewish man, like there's a whole thing here where like that foundation of understanding exists, but like not everyone is locking into it. That foundation of understanding is there and has been there, but some people either choose not to, or they just kind of like are like, yeah, but not really, or I'm too afraid to, or to do that and that. I talk about appropriation really as almost this might be controversial to some people, but I talk about cultural appropriation as a neutral term. I don't believe that appropriation in general is East Oakland. Appropriation in general is a bad thing. Shit, it's happening outside right now. Okay, but I don't believe it's a bad thing, like necessarily. What I have a problem with is ornamentation. When you take something and it's not, you don't understand where it comes from, you don't understand the culture or anything like that, you don't understand its roots, you just do it because it's like when Vogue had its first like diversity issue and it was a white person in a kimono. It's like, that's ornamentation. The Mikado is ornamentation, like, or all kind of Orientalism and stuff like that. A lot of the rappers in 88 Rising, that's ornamentation. Like there is a difference between like how things have been like appropriated and turned into something else, and maybe turned into something that unites us and is beautiful, and someone who's just wearing something because it makes them feel cool.
But don't we think that's just a different word?
I think, yeah,
Like,
kind
because
of,
I
yeah.
feel like appropriation gives me a way to name when somebody's fucking up like that. You know
Word.
what I mean? Like, and it gives me, and so like other terms I've heard, I mean, I don't, other terms are like cultural appreciation, you know, people say
I don't
that,
like
but
that.
also like, but it's a bad term. But I just think of it as hybridity or like fusion. I mean, you know, there's ways that we have impacted one another culturally that forever change, you know, like particularly geographically, like however the diaspora works, wherever we end up, like that thing is of, you know, the culture of Oakland is like that hybridity as well. Like everything influences everything. So there's not like a yeah, so for me, like the appropriation gives me a way to name when someone's like over the top with it, because part of it, I believe in us sharing, you know, and it's happening anyway. Like there's no, you know, we don't really actually have control over it. And I also think a lot about when I'm just, you know, I got to shout out my adoptee people right now, because I think a lot about when white people adopt Black or Asian children. There's always this like way. I've had white families say to me like, "Oh yeah, no, we're an African American family, or now we're an Asian family because we have a child." And to me, that is identifiably fucking appropriation. Do you know what I mean? And they'll like celebrate, you know, and I think you know, white people who have adopted children of color have gone through phases around that where they're like, you know, celebrating going to Chinese New Year or celebrating whatever thing, and then have finally moved to actually like supporting their child to have community around them that are actually Chinese or actually Filipino, whatever. And so, but it still happens like to a degree, but that again, like I like the specificity of the word. So I hear you, you know.
I feel you. Yeah. I mean, it's all words and stuff. I wanted to say a quick goodbye to, and thank you, Toss, for making that transition so seamless. I want to say a quick goodbye to Tommy Shepard, Soulati, for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you. Check out the Alphabet Rockers if you do not know who they are. Killing it right now out there. And Mush, I also see that you got to hop off in a little bit. We're gonna, you know, we'll keep going. We'll keep it going. There's still plenty of people in the stream who are asking questions and stuff, so we'll keep it going until probably at the top of the hour, and then we'll be done. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Lisa Marie. It's like there's often kind of this war, especially in kind of like, I think they talk about this a lot in like the kind of the comedy world and stuff. There's this war of semantics going on as far as like the words and stuff that we use. And I don't know if maybe this is me actively trying to like turn appropriation into a neutral term, or
I'm gonna do it.
I think I should do it. I really,
I want to see if you'll succeed.
I feel like, you know, appropriation too, like colonization has done horrible things to people. It's also the reason we have boba. It's also the reason we have like chicken katsu and shit. Like we wouldn't have katsu unless Portuguese came over and taught the Japanese how to do katsuretsu. We wouldn't have Korean fried chicken unless Black people taught Korean people how to fry chicken in World War II. We wouldn't have all. I know I'm talking a lot about food right now, but like food is really the way forward. Is all I'm saying. Is like you can see our history.
It really is.
You can see our histories through food, and you can see kind of like our histories through how we enjoy. You can see our cultures through how we enjoy that food and stuff like that. And like I don't know, maybe I'm just gonna put this out there on the table. Maybe just sharing food is the way to like go forward. No, I'm saying
break bread quite literally, right, Smiley? Like
that's right.
It is the most disarming place. You can't really be mad at somebody if they've cooked up a bomb bowl of pho for you, or you know, or an amazing mac and cheese or whatever. Like it's really difficult to not be able to see past those impediments those false impediments of skin color and whatever
Mhm.
cultural differences you have when somebody can throw down in the kitchen.
Right.
Because there's so many connections there. It's like, oh wait, you sound like my grandma. My
It-
grandma. Oh, okay.
You
There's a whole
know,
ritual. to
it's so true. It's,
right?
I mean, yeah, it's really, food is it. I've been adopted by many a non-Black family over the course of meals. Food is it. Food is the way.
By the way, everyone here is welcome to my table. That's all I'm saying.
Table is
Have
fine.
y'all seen
Bill
Bill's
delivered me
food?
food.
Everyone
I've
out in the
seen-
chat,
Yeah.
follow
Yeah.
Philly Wong Snacks on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. You know, it was interesting because when I was doing the instant lunch a while ago, when like
Yeah.
you know protesters were out, and I was like giving food to people. I made mac and cheese one day, and I was just like, oh shit, this better be really good, because I was about to like go out to like all the protesters in like Oakland, and I was just like, because the day before I had made fried rice, which was in my wheelhouse, and the next day I was like, oh, I can make mac and cheese, and then while I was making it, I was like, shit, can I make
That
mac?
Asian man can't make a mac and cheese.
Can I make
We knew it.
You'd have found out about it if you didn't make it.
For real.
Yeah, but it's the like, yeah. Well, you know what? The real key to the Mac is something that I've learned is like, I went to Dookie Chase in New Orleans, and I was like, how did you do this? How did this happen? They're like, there's a sauce that you make first. It's not all cheese. It's like you start with the sauce. The sauce has to have like flavor and stuff in it.
It's a bechamel.
Yeah, it's a bechamel. Yeah, and I had been making mac and cheese with like milk and cheese like the entire time. And so I learned from people in New Orleans how to make a bechamel, and that made my mac and cheese better. That's it. Food is it, man.
Food is it.
Yeah, I was just about to say that Kraft got you messed up, Phil. Kraft had you
Like,
fooled.
powder,
Kraft and
water,
Velveeta they was lying to you.
powder, water.
That craft methodology.
Box, water.
I see it.
Stir.
But yeah, like Tasi's saying in the chat, I can make fried rice blindfolded. Fucking me too, bro. That's like in our blood. But like we gotta teach that shit. We gotta teach people how to dry out the rice the night before so that it can rehydrate in the oil and stuff like that. We gotta continue to proselytize the glories of Spam, you know, which is
Spam
something
musubi.
like this is my favorite. And we're getting into my favorite part of the conversation right now, which
I'm
I
glad
knew
I just showed
we
up.
would get
That's
to at
great.
some point. But like, man, the food, it's fucking it, bro. Like, we have to continue to break bread with each other. We have to keep inviting each other to the cookout, to the table, to the banquet, to whatever the fuck it is that we're doing, where our families are there and our people are there. And so that, you know, we can we can show my grandma that not everyone is hak mung mung, like I said before, you know.
You know,
Or
the
maybe they are hak mung mung, but like not in the way that you understood it.
Right.
You know, I had this talk. I went on this tour in 2014 of just going to kind of my elder relatives, my great uncles and aunts and stuff like that. They all live near like Monterey Park in LA and stuff. And I went down there and I'm just like going around listening to their stories, and something crazy that I noticed is every one of their stories had like they had a lot of different stories about a lot of different things, but every one of them had a story about a Black person who assaulted them. And so many times when I had talked to them in the past, and I'd heard kind of like some mess about something, and I kind of ignored it in the past, like that was all informed by that kind of like event, you know. And to bring it back to the thing that I was talking about at the very, very beginning of this whole conversation today, like those things that continue to exist in our histories and continue to be passed on to me. That story of my great uncle about to propose to my great aunt and getting the shit beat out of him and almost dying in a fucking parking lot on New Year's. And, you know, proposing to her from his hospital bed. Like, those stories continue to get passed on to me with no context.
Mm-hmm.
They get passed on to me, and all I think about it is just like, oh, that shit happened. Oh, that's a thing that happens between our communities. I guess I'll continue moving on with my life, you know. And we don't think about why and how and what is actually kind of the, you know, Smiley said over there, like those people who are watching the whole thing and orchestrating it and making sure that that history gets passed on and ingrained in us. Like, we don't think about that shit. And I didn't, you know. 2014 was fucking 7 years ago now, Jesus Christ. Like, and I didn't think about the implications of that until maybe a year ago when I was going through all that audio and stuff like that and listening to it and being like, wow, we keep telling these stories, and we're specific about who is in those stories.
Yes.
And we pass that on, and we pass that on, and we pass that on, and we call people hawk mang mang and stuff like that. And like, that's.
But it's not just the individuals that pass it on, Phil. That's the thing. It's like it's like the mechanism, all the different institutions. I'm talking about media and pop culture in particular, then take that one story and replay it 1,000 times. And so that one incident or those 10 incidents, it doesn't matter, become the guiding truth. I gotta leave, but I can't leave without sharing this one story. I was on a walk with my Japanese Uruguayan sister. And if you know the history of Korea and Japan, we beef. It's like, oh no, we what we do is Korean people name their pets after Japanese names because it's that deep. Yeah, I had a church friend growing up. Her Korean family named their dog a Japanese name because it was like,
oh no,
that. So there's like intercultural beef, right? Isn't that fucked up? But look, during the Japanese internment, my girl Isa Nakazawa, her grandmother and grandfather were taken in the middle of the night in California in a farming community. And they were like, oh, you know, I'm scared, but we're going to be fine. You know, nobody's going to hurt us. The Mexican and Black families in that neighborhood, she didn't find this out until later, but the Mexican and Black families in that neighborhood did everything that they could to try to put the deed on the house under their name so that the government wouldn't take it. So that when Issa's Japanese grandmother and grandfather came back, they would be protected. That property would be protected because the Mexican laborers and the Black families, they knew what these fresh Asian immigrants didn't. Like that, this can't be possible. They're not, what? This is, you know what I mean? And those are the fucking stories we don't tell. And those are the fucking stories that the media, history textbooks don't tell. And so how does she have to find out about it? She was on Clement Street in San Francisco at a Hawaiian barbecue joint, talking to old Japanese elders. This is how she found out about that story. Like, so part of our job, I think somebody was asking like, well, how do we go and find our tribe, or how do we, circle out this, how do we grow and expand this? I think part of it is like really insisting on those stories. Like when we do find them, we insist and we tell the hell out of them. Like as a poet, I'm like, man, I did that poem like 10 years ago. I can't bring that back. I did that rhyme like 18 years ago. Somebody heard me, and then I'm gonna bring it back, and then I'm gonna look like a tired ass artist. Part of it is like, look, spoken word poets, we're all guilty of that.
I know, we know.
Yes, okay, right. But the thing is, I feel like part of us needs to get out of our own fucking ego and way. We need to insist on those stories because they are not written. And that's part of the job as the artist. I don't care what your discipline is. We're storytellers, all of us. That's what unites us. I don't care.
Right.
Filmmaker, a painter, you know what I mean? A dancer, we tell stories. And I feel like that is part of our important job and legacy if we're really trying to do racial reconciliation or like racial justice or liberation for all, which I believe everybody on this call, and probably most folks who are tuning in, except for the one hater and troll in there. I'm just joking, Twitch.
What?
There's always one. There's always one.
I was just so joking. So that's my final parting story. And she told me this today. And I was like, look, do I have your permission to share this story? And she said, absolutely. Can I share your name? Absolutely. So always cite your people. That's a part of liberty. You know what I mean? If somebody taught me game on how to be a spoken word artist and they taught me that it came from Africa, I better fucking name that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes. And so this is for Issa Nakazawa, and this is her family story. And there are lots of stories actually like that in Chicago where Japanese folks were also interned and taken from their homes there. And the communities of color, the Latinx communities, the Black communities tried to, protect their property so that when they returned it, because they knew.
Been there.
Yeah.
With that,
love you, Mush.
Y'all, thank you, Mush. Like that takes us to the top of the hour. That is the end of our happy hour today, y'all. We need to do this shit again.
Phil, I'm
real
sorry.
quick too, Phil. I just want to name. Sorry, Ryan. I just want to name that the people who did that to your family, and I think this is like the irrefutable fact that people deep down understand. Folks that did that to your family member were foul and janky and like needed to be smacked up themselves. Like they were out of pocket. They were wrong, right? And like that's the thing is like I as a Black person see that. I can tell you that the folks who are harming Asian elders are out of pocket. They're not okay. I don't condone. It's not cool. And we need to work on that, right? And it's like the conversation, the issue is getting deeper, right? To how these narratives are used to not even get to that point. But no matter what, like if you just said on an individual basis, this happened to my family, whoever you talk to would be like, that's foul, that's fucked up. So we understand that basis, and it's this use of race against us that doesn't even allow us to do that. But I just want to name that was foul. It was fucked up, and it was, and that is what puts a stain on people's memory and the way that people interact with that different community. Because if that happened to my family, I would definitely grow up and be like, yo, I'm not really messing with Black folks, because they could be violent. That's a real thing.
Thank you, Smiley. With that, y'all, that brings us to the end of our conversation today, our Fishbowl conversation. Shouts out to Tassi Alabastro, aka Kreen Pananas, the Wizard of Taz, pulling the strings from behind the curtain. Thank you so much, all of you who are joining us out there in the Twitch sphere. Remember, this Thursday, coming up on the 25th, the album release party of Critical Minded by MC Infinite. It has been a long time coming. Los has been grinding for so long to make this album, and he finally made it happen with some crowdfunding. Thanks to everyone who crowdfunded that album. We'll be doing an album release party. It's going to be so chill. We're going to listen to the whole thing. We're going to examine each of the different people. So many incredible features on there. Unlearn the World, Verse Soul, Soulati, just so much local talent on that album, and it is fucking fire. I listened to it working out like yesterday, and I was fucking pumped. I was so fucking ready to
Is that why you're so jacked, Phil?
Yes, exactly. I have been working out just a little bit more. I'm not just drinking whiskey all the time, but like For real though, like that album just got me so hyped. I'm so excited to premiere that on Thursday. And then the following month, Dan Wolf's album, Blood and Bones, Skin and Scars, will also be premiered. Another thing that is being worked on, that has been worked on for quite some time, and such an incredible, unique perspective, and fucking it's just fire. It's all fire. Thank you everyone in the Twitch sphere for joining us today. That is it. Good night. Hopefully this is the first of many Asian Black Unity happy hours. Good night to all, and to all a good night. That's how I usually sign things off. Peace, y'all.